prominent constitutional and a human rights lawyer and a senior researcher at the Center for Policy Alternatives. Good to have you on the program with us. Security forces have been given orders to shoot on sight as these protests continue. How concerned are you about the potential human rights situation right now in the country?
So thank you for having me. We are in a state of emergency at the present moment. So in addition to curfew, there are broad powers given to the security forces and the police to take action. And the emergency regulations itself is very, very broad. So it's very, very worrying as to what the situation is. So as you mentioned, we are in curfew at the present moment. So it's people are not allowed to travel. But there are many protesters still out on the roads and protesting for the resignation of the president. So despite the curfew, people are still going out onto the streets and showing their unhappiness and anger towards this government.
As you said, the people protesting are calling for the president to resign, but so far he has refused that call. But even if he were to step down, what would be the political alternative?
Well, there are different scenarios that could happen, and particularly there is a position given in terms of the Constitution when the president resigns. There are scenarios that can happen democratically, so that needs to be explored. But what is likely to happen now, according to news reports, is we're going to have a new prime minister sworn in and likely a government soon after. So the president looks like he's not going to be going anywhere. He's going to be holding on to office despite the weeks-long protests. So we are not going to see much change in that situation, but we will likely have a new prime minister and government today. So that brings in some form of stability because we didn't have a prime minister and a government for several days now, since Monday, the resignation of the former prime minister. But much is to be done. But the demands of the protesters continue, and that is for the president to resign. So this is not going to solve all the problems that the protesters see as requiring attention.
So what are your expectations for the new prime minister? After all, it may be a new prime minister, but it's not a new name, a very, very familiar prime minister there in Sri Lanka.
Yes, the name that is circulating is someone who has a lot of experience, over 40 years in politics. He's held the position of prime minister for several years, and so he brings with him considerable experience. But he also has gone through quite a lot of time in office, but also in parliament, and he is not seen as the most popular. And already there are questions raised as to why he was selected, because his party only has one seat in parliament. Now, that apart, whoever takes on board the challenge of forming a government is going to have this massive task in terms of bringing political stability, but also addressing the economic crisis. And Sri Lanka has a huge challenge forward. So it's going to be a massive task for anyone who takes on this task. But one of the things that the protesters are also calling, and this is something we see from different stakeholders, is that whoever takes on office should be for the short term. There should be a particular time frame, and that we go in for general elections soon after. So I think there are different things that can move. The important thing is that we bring in stability and have a plan for the economic recovery. And we are yet to see that from the president, but hopefully we see some plans now that there is likely to be a prime minister and government in the next few hours.
All right, we'll leave it there. Bhavani Fonseka joining us from Colombo. Thank you.